Murders have increased by 3.8% in Gauteng between the months of October and December compared to the same period in 2022. A slight decrease has been recorded in the number of sexual offences that have been reported over the same period. The Gauteng Community Safety Portfolio Committee chairperson is Bandile Masuku, who joins us now to discuss these worrying figures. Dr. Masuku, good evening to you and thank you for your time. Your thoughts around this increase in the murder rate in Gauteng? Surely that's worrying.
Yeah, good evening and good evening to your viewers, and probably appreciate the opportunity to be on your show. Yes, this is pretty much a worrying picture that we have seen, and it's something that we continue to make sure when we see and meet with the police service to encourage them to come about with interventions that will help in such circumstances. In particular, the number is about the one incident that actually records multiple murders, because that's what has been one of the increased incidences in the province.
Remind us of that particular incident.
Like the one in Diepsloot, where you found that it was one incident and 5 bodies were found. And there are numbers that have in a number of other incidents, like in Reha Park or in Reha Park in Boksburg, where this type of situation has happened. So it's the number of incidences that have actually somehow decreased, but in terms of the number of the charges or the account of bodies that are found are the ones that are a big problem.
So let's call it for what it is then. Vigilantism. It is on the rise in the province. I had the very commissioner of police seated on that chair last week, and he seemed to pour cold water on exactly the words I'm using, that we are seeing a rise in vigilantism. These are communities frustrated with the rate at which police respond to their cries, and they end up taking the law into their own hands. What's the plan to deal with this?
Yeah, I'm glad that you don't use the unfortunate term, that mob justice that has been bandied around, because we know that vigilantism is a big problem, and it's criminality, and it actually violates individual or citizens' rights. But it's an important aspect that deals with the trust, the confidence that the communities are having in terms of police. But it's structures like us, committees like ours, that helps to try and bridge, the gap between the police and the communities. But we also further encourage the communities to use the legal frameworks that are existing, like your police forums, which are in existence in most of the police precincts across the province. And we hope that this can also help to bridge the gap and make sure that the police are able to act with the interest of the community.
Dr. Masuku, the mechanisms are there. It means that the community does not have trust in them and add to their frustrations. The police, they simply don't trust them to bring about solutions, and so they end up taking the law into their own hands. What is the solution? When you say you, as members of the legislature, are the bridge, what kind of programs are there to make sure that that bridge is effective?
Yeah, I think there is a number of engagements that we have. Even the police themselves do have what they call the street imbizos, which was started 2 years ago, where they engage with the communities. But furthermore, it's an important aspect that where we have seen much collaboration between the communities and the police, there is pretty much success in many of the crime categories that are there. So it just depends also on the communities themselves, that they need to get properly organized within the legal framework to be able to deal with some of the crime incidences. Because one thing that we need to also acknowledge, Xoli, is that it wouldn't take a number of, can employ 1 million actually police, but there are some crimes categories of crimes that are happening in our communities that still require the communities to stand up on their own, to be able to raise awareness within themselves to make sure that they deal with them, like the issue that we're dealing with, the crime category on sexual assault.
Communities are going to tell you that they are organized, and that is why, for them to solve this, they are able to identify the individuals, and they are able to take action which they believe is corrective action, and that's why some of them are in court. This is dangerous. It's a very dangerous situation that is unfolding, because these are communities who've basically resorted to saying we are helpless as far as police are concerned, and we must take matters into our own hands. In Diepsloot, for example, the commissioner says areas like that are very difficult to police because of the narrow streets, the densely populated area that it is, and therefore it becomes dangerous for them to go into these street passages. And sometimes what does help is drones, them flying cameras above in order to inspect the area. What is the solution to communities like that, that are difficult for police to go in because of the dangers?
You know, one of the major strategies or pillars, that the national strategy on crime prevention and crime fighting is on, is also in relation to what we call spatial planning, and also the environmental design that you find. So in Diepsloot, for an example, we know, as a matter of fact, that we require Johannesburg Metropolis and the Johannesburg City Council to come on board to be able to assist us in terms of making sure that the informal settlement, the informal part of Diepsloot is actually formalized like the other part of Diepsloot, so that it makes it easier for policing to happen. And this is one of the ways and the strategies that we need to continue to encourage, particularly the city councils that we are working with, to make sure that they assist, in that regard. It also includes, lighting, for an example, where lighting street lights should be functional. It also includes grass cutting, in other spaces. So this strategy that has been punted around for the past 5 years has been very clear in terms of how partnerships are important. And where we have seen that partnerships are important is when we have actually recorded some level of success. And I think the one aspect is the one on sexual assaults and rape, which has actually remarkably actually dropped. And it's something that we need to actually commend these partnerships that we see across the province.
I'm glad you touch on the sexual offenses and that they have somewhat reduced. However, it is still a worrying area to deal with. But a flashpoint, which again contributes to increased murders, is gangsterism. Westbury is a particular area where gangsterism is a problem. As I speak to you, there are reports that there was an incident there, either overnight, last night, or it could have been last week. Talk to us about how gangsterism is being dealt with.
One of the things that we initiated as a committee is to keep tabs on El Dorado and Riverlea and Westbury. And part of the report that the police service give to the committee, actually to legislature, includes their anti-gang activity. And one thing that we also have noted through all this is that in a period where there's an intensified, escalated intervention, there is much decrease in that type of activities. And it's a worrying thing that then it dies out over a period of time. Hence, as a committee, we have encouraged the point where we need long-term sustainable interventions which will help, because that on its own helps a lot in decreasing. But I'm not going to tire to express the issue that we need proper integration, we need proper coordination, we need collaborations, we need partnerships. And that's so important because I asked the question this afternoon that is there any other activity that we have found from the community that has actually helped the police to identify the gangsters themselves and the people who are involved in gangsterism, and it's something that we are also going to keep continuing to ask because we want the communities, particularly who are organized within the CPFs, to be able to be the ones, the eyes and ears of the police or the eyes and ears of the community in general of Gauteng to deal with issues of gangsterism.
Linked to that gangsterism is the issue of drug trafficking. And these two murder, or should I say these two crime trends that we have spoken about now, they're the ones that lead to mass murders. My final question to you, Chairperson, is what do you think are the long-term solutions to murders in South Africa as a whole? And I'm asking you this question on the back of a manifesto proposal by the IFP, which says, let's open the debate on the death penalty. Is that something that you think is worth discussing, the death penalty?
I think we can discuss it, but it has shown, scientifically that death penalty has never been a deterrent to many levels of crimes that have been found. There are countries that you find that there's a high level of death penalty, but crime is still, exists. I think there are underlying factors that we need to deal with. And the other thing is that death penalty does violate somehow some right of life, which I think our Constitution does actually espouse. And we can have other ways to deal with offenders, particularly for those who deny other people's their right to live. We can find other ways to be able to make them accountable and make them actually to be punished. So I don't think scientifically, having looked at through the literature, that death penalty has helped in many countries to deter people from committing crime. But I just think better collaborations, better partnerships, integration for that matter, of all the law enforcement agencies and coordination, that will help, and there is speckles, of evidence that shows, some element of success when that does happen properly.
Yeah. Finally, and very briefly, sexual offences, you made reference to that crime trend decreasing slightly. What are the positives there that you think are contributing to a decline in this?
There is a cohort of patrollers that have been introduced by the Community Safety Department in Gauteng called Siyabangena, which helps to increase the level of awareness amongst the community, because this is a crime that usually doesn't even happen in public places, and it doesn't actually involve individuals who don't know or who are strangers to each other. These are a type of crimes that happen behind closed doors of places where these victims call homes and where they even know, the actual assailant. So the more we increase the awareness, the pressure and the intensity that we increase the awareness does help. But there's also one element that we need to continue actually to work around, which relates to the trading of alcohol or the usage of alcohol, which somehow does play a role, in driving some of these incidences.
All right. The Gauteng Community Safety Portfolio Committee Chairperson, Dr. Bandile Masuku, thank you very much for your time.